All
Go.
right. Great. So I was told that you all were kind enough to read the book, Technology at the Margins, and that you read chapters 1, 5, and 6. And what I thought I'd do is to try and get you to understand the impact of technology on development, how that is changing, why it is actually extremely important for us to be able to understand the role of technology as we think about crisis, and then the roles various organizations actually play. And stop me at any time, ask me questions, and we can have a conversation. So first, I just want to share a little bit about myself, which is what I like to do when I start off. That I am an innovation catalyst, I'm a social entrepreneur, I teach, I'm a philanthropist, I'm also an artist, I'm an author, and I speak. Now, why this is important is that most of us try to compartmentalize our skills. But if we actually really think about it, what we want to bring, whether you bring to the classroom, you bring to the industry, you bring to the house, is all of you, your complete self, and you can't just compartmentalize it. So my thinking reflects. I'm not just an educator, I'm not just an entrepreneur or a speaker, but I am all of these, including an artist. And that really what drives everything that I do. So why does technology matter for development? And so when you kind of look at it, and you have Peter Toyama at the Institute, and he has a slightly different take on how he thinks about technology and technology more as a lever rather than technology for technology's sake. But in either case, technology is driving change. And whether you think about it from the humanitarian aspect, whether you think about it from a conservation aspect, whether you think about it in your daily lives, how you communicate, how you shop, how you interact, technology is now no longer at the edge of what you do, but it is at the center of what you do. In many cases, it is also the leveling the playing field. But in many cases, it's also increasing the spikes and the valleys because of those who have access to technology and those who don't have access to technology, or as technology advances, there are more and more people that may be left behind. And how do we think about that? But at the end of the day, we have seen more and more people, even poor people, using basic technology, which is giving them access to lots of different things which they previously didn't have. And what we are also seeing is that technology is fostering economic and social improvement. Right? It is having a difference. And there are examples that we can talk about, right? Whether you look at it for agricultural purposes, whether you look at it for microfinance, whether you think about it as mobile payment systems, whether you think about it in terms of access to healthcare and education. There are lots of different areas in which technology is playing a role for development. So in the book, I kind of looked at 4 different areas, right? Education and training, finance, climate change, and healthcare. And I thought that I'll just kind of try and give you a quick refresher on what has changed since the time we kind of thought about, when we wrote a book. Today, whether it is DDD, summer source, the school in the cloud, it is bringing access, and people are able to use not just basic technology, but they're using high-end technology. So, for example, school in the cloud, is connecting classrooms using Skype, and kids are able to learn through each other and by creating self-lessons to learn. SummerSource, for example, has now created micro-work where it is able to train, and this is what DDT is also doing, is able to get people in the developing world, emerging markets, to provide services and rich content services to global companies around the world because they are doing micro work, and then these organizations are taking all of that information and giving completed work to whether it is Microsoft or Google or any of these companies that actually want data-related work done. But it is no longer just limited to back-end office services. It is actually now becoming, people are using SharePoint and people are using image tagging, so maps and all are much more accurate. So there are lots of different things that can be done. I don't know if you guys any of you watch Narnia, but a lot of the digitization of that animation of that movie was done by kids in Guatemala who were trained to do this rendering. So you're suddenly getting this upskilling happening because technology is getting outsourced, and you will see more and more of that. Now we've seen healthcare becoming much more service through information technology, whether it is creating healthcare marketplaces where people can actually find basic healthcare services, or what Pedigree is doing is marking up its drugs so that you can actually distinguish between genuine and fake drugs, which is a major problem in the developing world and even in the developed world in terms of whether you are actually whether the drugs that you're getting is genuine or fake. But this is not even taking into account that you're going to get telemedicine is happening, remote sensing is happening, people are doing remote operations, and all of that has happened in the last 5 years. And it will continue to amplify given where technology is going today. When you look at environment and energy, clearly, just by, getting solar lights, or you're putting, small devices that can actually measure the quality of water that is getting pumped out, or irrigation that can be controlled by technology so that you're not wasting water, or electricity that is being generated through solar power, but then it is actually also getting connected through smartphones and apps that is actually controlling how these devices can effectively work. And this is all having impact on climate. And I'm not even looking at some of the high-end uses of how non-profit organizations are effectively using technology to measure climate pollution, climate change, green revolution, Internet of Things that is actually measuring. You can now, connect these small devices and you can power down machines, you can actually remote control them, and all of that is having an impact on how you see technology benefiting poor people around the world. And look at e-commerce. I mean, people have been trying to do e-commerce using the web since the early 2000s. But it is only in the last 5 years that you've had, a major scale-up of e-commerce services. Anybody know what was the lever that actually changed it? Any idea?
A lot of thoughtful faces, but no hands.
What do you use most frequently
Amazon.
to buy?
Was Amazon cell phones were mentioned?
Well, I mean, actually PayPal. Because people were able to set up online accounts and payment systems that could actually move across countries. So PayPal opened up the market that allowed for e-commerce websites around the world to be set up, and then of course Amazon becoming this massive platform on which people could, sell their goods, and goods can actually move in a short period of time across countries. So that kind of shifted the market and the dynamics that allowed for the shift in how financial services and payment systems were happening that allowed for e-commerce to grow. But now look at what is happening with M-Gadi in Bangalore in India, where auto rickshaws, these are basically Uber for auto rickshaws. And rickshaw drivers now have a phone with an app on it. It may not even be a smartphone. And now you can actually call a auto rickshaw rather than try and flag it down in traffic, which is always a pain. And then online marketplaces, because they have grown, you've also seen the scaling up of community and cooperative-based enterprises, which are small-scale artisans who've been able to collectively sell their goods to cooperatives, which they have always done in the local market. Now they are able to do that for a market that may be, outside of their immediate geographic boundary and across countries. And then you see public sector services that are becoming far more interesting. So you take Propel as an example. Now you can actually, download this app on your phone, and this is an app created to service the SNAP recipients. These are people that are on food stamps in this country. There are 45 million unique users, which is 1 in 7 person in this country is on food stamps. It's an $80 billion industry. And what these guys have done is that they've actually created an app. If you have an EBT number, which is your account number that you get if you're a food stamp recipient, you type that in, and then the app opens up and you can use the app. And the app basically tells you deals that are available in local grocery stores. But more importantly, the reason why this app came about is that if any of you have used the food stamp before, you go in, you actually don't remember what your balance is, because your balance comes out on a receipt which you may have gone shopping 2 weeks ago, you have no idea where that receipt is. Now you stand in line and you're putting it back because you don't have enough money on your account. So if you look closely at the screen, it gives you the balance. The first thing it tells you is how much money you have left in your account. So you can now go and purchase precisely what you want to buy, knowing full well this is the amount that you have. Which is why people have started using the app. Then they've gone and made deals with Kroger or Safeway or take any of these companies, grocery chains, and said, hey, if you offer a deal, we will actually promote it through our app, and you will get more customers coming in. And now they're able to actually collect all this data, which is basically saying what people are buying, which is incredibly powerful and valuable for these chains. And then they're putting all sorts of social services and other services for these people on the app, including bus routes, times that stores are open. And one interesting thing that they've done is that if you are on food stamps, your allowance doubles if you buy fruits and vegetables from a farmer's market. Now, most farmers' markets are actually not in inner city neighborhoods because they are food deserts. And now they're able to encourage these these farmers markets to actually go near to where low-income residents are, because now they know that they have the money, double the money to use, and they're now eating healthy. And this company, Propel, survives by getting a cut from all the transactions that are happening. So this kind of becomes a win-win opportunity to use technology to improve public sector services in a way that it can scale. Because this is a national program, so you can just scale it everywhere. Any questions?
My understanding with food stamps is that it's a federal grant that goes to states and states run the program. Have you heard anything from Propel on if that's been a challenge? Are they only working in certain states? Yeah, I'm just wondering if that has mattered.
Yeah, get somebody closer to the mic. Repeat that question, please.
Yeah. So if I can summarize, it's the so Akhtar, in many cases it's the states that
Hello?
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
All right, great. So in many cases, it's the states that regulate. They actually,
Or administer.
the states administer the food stamp program, and has Propel encountered any issues or problems or obstacles having to work with individual states?
No, because all the data is online. So once you put in an EBT number, you can actually get that data of what is available. Particularly, all they are doing is taking the balance that is available for each recipient and putting it on the app. That's what's bringing people to the app. Everything else is add-on services that Propel is providing. So it works in parallel to the government system. It is not impeding the government system. It is not actually doing anything in terms of building a partnership that they have to build, it's a very clean approach.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? So I know that you guys are focused on humanitarian crisis. And clearly, you have an expert in the room who can talk for a very long time about his experience, Professor Hat, using, being in the midst of technology and the humanitarian crisis. But just a few examples, right? I mean, why is this important? One, once you've got a humanitarian crisis, without technology, rebuilding efforts is going to take a much longer time. And especially communities where resiliency is minimal, time becomes critical. So if technology can shorten that time between rebuilding efforts, recovery, rebuilding efforts, and it also helps in the rescue effort. So you kind of look at it from the perspective of technology for rescue, technology for recovery, and technology for rebuilding. And across all three spectrums, we've seen information technology and IT playing a major role. And because it does that, we are seeing large corporations, particularly information technology corporations like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and others, all playing an important role in supporting humanitarian crisis-related activities through technology. Because they know that this is one way by which they can provide immediate assistance and assistance through which you can see a difference being made. Whether Facebook getting its app that people can use and say, hey, I'm safe and secure. Or if during the crises of the Syrian refugees, a year and a half ago when the waves were coming across, most of the folks that were on a boat only came with a cell phone in a plastic bag. And the first thing they asked when they got on shore is, where can I get cell phone coverage? And where can I charge my phone? Because that was their lifeline. Because that was the only tool back that they had landed safely, and to find information as to where they should go next. So technology companies, including NetHope, were all setting up these waypoints to allow for these refugees to migrate through Greece all the way up into Northern Europe, giving them access to maps, access to technology, the internet, and in many cases, they were also trying to use digital currency so that they could actually be safe and secure as they were moving across. And then, of course, when you look at what happens in refugee camps, without technology and technology access, these people are just completely cut off. And you can have generations which are not going to get educated. So technology is going to play a massive role in educating these kids, providing economic opportunities, providing some access to the outside world. And this is one of the reasons why, Microsoft and others play such an important role. And what did we learn from, supporting NetHope for 10 years? What we also found is, look, even non-profit organizations need to be effective in the way they use technology. And if they are not, they're doing disservice to their client base. And those non-profits that are effectively going to use technology, their impact on society and all of their client base is going to be even more effective. So if you look at Ebola and the Ebola virus, NetHope was able to boost the bandwidth in 44 locations. But more importantly, by doing that, people were started getting information as to where the crisis, where the incidents was, which were in remote locations. People didn't want to send paper. They could actually send that information through their mobile phone. And people were afraid to touch paper or touch anything that somebody else had touched. So by putting all this data up on the cloud, people were able to kind of pinpoint where the incidents were and then provide response. And one thing that Ed will tell you, he has not already, in Liberia, the healthcare workers were going to go on strike because they didn't want payment through cash, because they weren't sure whether the notes were going to be infected or not. And one of the volunteers from Badshah went out to Liberia and set up a mobile payment system that NetHope was able to expand, and they started getting mobile payments into their bank account rather than cash notes, which is what the normal mode of payment was. So you suddenly see the shift that happens because of technology. And this is where technology for humanitarian crisis becomes pretty important. Any questions there before I shift to the next topic?
No, press on.
Okay, so now, if you get a chance, read this book, Abundance, by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler, where they are basically talking about this whole self-exponential technologies that are going to come. There's artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, Internet of Things, synthetic biology, blockchain. And this is dematerializing, demonetizing, and democratizing technology. But what it is also creating is a turbulent period of pre-abundance. There are some of us who will be the super haves because we will gravitate to these technologies, we will know these technologies, we will use these technologies, and therefore be far ahead of other people in society. And then you will have the super have-nots. These are going to be folks in the emerging countries, the poor people, who would benefit most from these technologies, but are not going to. So how do we then create exponential leaders who will continue to build this bridge? And that will then require people like you and agencies, non-profit organizations, technology companies, all to be focused on how are we trying to support these organizations in a way that they are actually acting as bridge makers. And that I think is going to be extremely important as we go forward. So one of that technology is fintech. How many of you heard of fintech? How many of you use Venmo? Put your hands up. Okay, so you all use Venmo. What is Venmo? Venmo is a payment sharing app, correct? That's a financial technology company. And how many of you go to a bank to deposit a check? Just one. How do you deposit your checks?
Take a photo.
Take a photo, right? So what is happening is the financial companies are all moving into creating technology-related solutions. And you have hundreds of companies in that space, right? Whether it is lending, retail investments, equity financing, remittances, payment systems, banking, stock brokerage, all sorts of things. But that technology is also becoming useful for the unbanked. And that's the financial services for the poor. The 2 billion people who are unbanked and traditional financial institutions are not serving them. How many of you have heard of M-Pesa?
M-Pesa. Two.
One.
Two.
Two. So, what is M-Pesa? M-Pesa is basically a way by which you can store money on your SIM card, which is what in most countries you will do, is to store money using your SIM card. And Vodafone in India, as part of its marketing and promotional effort, created something called M-Pesa, which was basically an ability for you to transfer money that you had stored in your SIM card to your relative in the village. So the relative in the village, if they have also had an M-Pesa account, could go to the M-Pesa folks. You would get a text saying, there is 10 shillings. And 10 shillings would be deducted from my account, and I would have sent 10 shillings to you. You would have gone to the M-Pesa store, which you see your picture, and got 10 shillings. It came up as a marketing campaign to get a foothold in the country. And today they've got a $2 billion float. The Reserve Bank of India is trying to figure out whether they are a financial institute or a phone company. They pay no interest on that money, but it is a secure place where you can store your money. And now all sorts of services, whether it is Coco and other services that have come on top of that, where they are providing lending services to small businesses, the restaurant or the barber shop or what beauty salon, then if you take money using the M-Pesa services, they are automatically able to deduct a small portion of your loan through every transaction. So you now have collateral to be able to pay back. So all sorts of fascinating services are actually getting created because a you are able to money on a phone. And the Gates Foundation is now working across the world to try and create the guardrails by which more of these financial services can be offered to poor people around the world. The other piece is big data and business intelligence. Tableau using its big data solutions, working with PAT, which is one of the largest non-profit organizations focused on health and eliminating infectious disease. They are working in Zambia to eliminate malaria. And they're all doing it through digital mapping, getting these local health workers to use data and visual data to map where the incidence of malaria are the most, predict when it will happen, and then get this ahead of time so that people can take doses and not die of malaria. And in doing so, you can actually, cut down the number of people that are going to fall sick or die because of malaria. So open source mapping around rain mapping that actually shows, where water is stagnant, cases that, particularly in South Zambia, where there is more cases of malaria and mosquitoes. And the mosquito can only fly, 40. It can't fly more than that. So you can actually map, a range, and from that range, decipher which are the areas that are going to be most infected, and then take precautions and intervene. So the Zambia government is actually using, in partnering capacity building that has happened through Tableau and PAN on the ground, they're able to train workers all the way down to be able to use this technology and improve how they are able to service and manage what is, a major, which can become an epidemic in many cases. And then, how would you use artificial intelligence? Right? So whether it is for agriculture, where AI can help you figure out the soil, water that is needed, when to plant the crop, how long to plant the crops, when to protect it, how to till. So this can, get all of it down to biodiversity, to really understand what is getting extinct and how through AI you can actually help discover, monitor and protect biodiversity across our planet. Water, AI can help people model Earth's water supply to help us conserve. Machine learning can provide faster, more effective and lower cost land cover mapping tools. And climate change. So artificial intelligence will play a major role, and the challenge is, are non-profit organizations going to step up to the challenge and say, we've got to find a few people who understand this to work for us? Or are they going to be, with their head buried in the sand that this is really something that we cannot afford, this is wrong, this is bad for us, and therefore we're not. And that's where you're going to start seeing these gaps, because those organizations that are going to effectively use even some aspects of these technologies are going to create more impact than those that are not. So finally, tech isn't everything. It is leveling the playing field. But that does not mean that all solutions have to be technology solutions. You have to do it to keep people in mind first. Right? It's not about this new technology, it is about the application of that technology and to understand how you can effectively apply that technology for the purposes that you are focused on, which is crisis and humanitarian services. New leaders are emerging. Anyone, anywhere can be an innovator. I don't know whether you have heard of the story of the child, the boy that built the windmill. This is the kid in Malawi that wanted to read, and William found some blueprints of windmills in his village and built a windmill and a tower that could light up his whole village. He went to Dartmouth and got an MBA. He's given multiple TED Talks, a book is written on him. But it is all about being innovative and being perseverant and really looking at it. When you look at the contraption is completely low-tech. But he's using high-tech solutions to deliver electricity to his village. And, you can do it at scale. Scale and depth are not mutually exclusive. When you look at Propel as a solution, that solution can scale because it is tied to a public sector program. If it is successful in New York, it can be successful in Seattle, it can be successful in San Francisco, and you don't have to wait for it to scale. And then at the end of the day, as I started off by saying, people are at the core of development. And therefore, it always be about civic engagement. And, changing the world takes more than just developing a killer app. Yes, technology is important, but then you also need the intermediaries that are going to be able to take that technology and make it relevant for people that need to use it. And it is going to be both a combination of low and high tech, which is going to work most effectively in situations that we talk about, which is crisis information. So let me stop here and have questions. And there are a few points that Professor Harvard sent to me, which I can talk about too.
Akhtar, did you advance your slides? We're still on the technology and humanitarian crisis with NetHope and Dadab.
I can't hear a thing.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so your slide is currently on the technology and humanitarian crisis with NetHope and the Ebola response. But my sense is you talked to subsequent slides. Can you advance? It did not change, yeah.
Oh my God. So you saw Propel, and then you saw NetHope and Ebola response.
Yeah, and then it stopped there.
Has it changed?
So at first we took it as you were elaborating, which was very fascinating. But then I remembered, no, you've got more slides.
And none of these are changing.
No.
Oh. Well, that shows the value of technology.
we may not have enough bandwidth on one end here to actually advance slides. And my guess is it has to do with sharing your desktop.
But I am sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, I stopped sharing. And
Reshare.
share my screen again. Okay, and do you see another slide?
Yes, now we're on exponential technologies.
Okay, so I did talk about exponential technologies. And then I talked after that about M-Pesa
Yes.
and financial services for the poor.
Yes.
Then I did talk about big data and business intelligence about Path and Tableau.
Right.
Oh my, you guys should have said something. And then we talked about artificial intelligence, agriculture, biodiversity, water, climate change.
Yes.
Now, I'm hoping that you guys will get the slides.
Yeah, we will post them.
Yeah, just post them so you guys can take a look at it. And then I did this last one slide, which is democratization of technology, and the image of the boy that built the windmill.
Yes, that was a great story.
And now we are at questions.
Aha, okay.
So,
I'll repeat the question. Go ahead.
So you seem to think that AI is a big answer in the whole scheme of things from this point on. Are you worried about any of the shortcomings of AI, such as how the machines have been tricked, shown they've been tricked by malicious actors and other things like that?
So,
I mean, that's a whole other talk.
oh, good. You could hear that then. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, I got the gist of what he was saying. So, yeah, so, yes, clearly, I mean, you only have to read the book of Yuval Harari. It's called Homo Deus, where he actually talks about how technology is going to completely change mankind, humankind, and eventually we're going to become cyborg. And there's a paper that he has written which is called the Useless Class, which is an excerpt from one section of the book, which is essentially, and which is why you're actually getting so many people getting worried about artificial intelligence, is that it is not just going to impact blue-collar workers, it is going to impact highly trained professionals whose jobs are going to completely disappear, and there isn't going to be enough effort made to retrain them, and that we will continue to live much longer, and we will have no work. And this is going to become a societal problem, and which is why universal income, universal basic income, and those issues are becoming more focused. The class that I teach, which is the class on global business, we actually did discuss this whole issue of artificial intelligence, and I had the corporate vice president of Microsoft, who runs the AI for business group, talk about some of the issues that they are facing. And they are also challenged in terms of, I mean, he basically said half my group was ready to walk out if our technology was going to displace workers. So how do we think about that, and how do companies kind of, put their minds around it? It's not going to stop. Right? AI is already here. We are using, a lot of devices, whether you're using Alexa or Google Home or Cortana, speech recognition is all happening because of deep learning.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Could you send the link around to the press? That'd be great. Yeah, Akhtar, I don't know whether you saw the recent New Yorker article on the dark factory, which talked a lot about this problem of how factories with sort of mega automation are able to run total lights out, 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's not even, so yes, but the largest number of people that are employed in every state in this country are truck drivers. If in 10 years, those jobs are going to disappear in 10, 15 years because of what Elon Musk is doing, what do you do with them? right? So it's not just factory, but it is also going to be people that are lawyers, accountants, others that are in white-collar jobs whose pay is going to get minimized because of artificial intelligence. Today, contracts are written machine. And people, lawyers who are writing legal contracts, what are they going to do?
Yeah, it used to be that everybody would move up the food chain, but the problem is there's not enough room anymore.
Correct, correct. So, and we will live longer because healthcare will improve because of technology. We will fall sick less because of technology. But we may also have no work to do because of technology. But we are not there yet.
So where's the soft underbelly in this? Where do you think, and especially as you look across emerging countries, where do you think this falls apart? And there are counter signals.
So I think part of what is going to happen in emerging countries is because it is going to be much slower adoption rate, right? So once you've got slower adoption there, then there is more time for people to actually come up with alternative solutions which are going to be hybrid. But there is going to be lots of disruptions. You will see, right now, what we've seen with the political unevenness because of globalization and the fact that the value and stocks have become much more deeper, you will continue to see that in some segments. And therefore, what we do with our training, what we do with our capacity building, how we actually, even large companies need to start worrying about the impact of these technologies and what are they doing to put guardrails. And I think, unfortunately, the political discussion is not there. We are not focused on these issues, and we are focused on silly things. And I think we need to kind of, worry about it. But let's look at it the positive side, right? That as some of these technologies continue to develop and grow, it is going to have more and more benefits to people. AI is already getting people who are blind or with physical disabilities and other disabilities to have better response rate and better cognition around conversations, have a better life. You are obviously seeing, better improvements in ways in which we are going to think about productivity, especially farming and food. More and more people are able to do that. The question is going to be, are we going to come to some a median, or is the pendulum going to swing way across where the impact then will be much more challenging? Other questions? What are you guys seeing out in the field, in the classroom, and how you are seeing technology changing your life?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think we've talked about. So how is technology disrupting or changing life as a student or a learner?
And then I'm going to come back to crisis.
Okay. So if you look back across the last 5 or more years of education, what's
You
changed?
also to use Venmo, right? So
Venmo.
that's changed your life.
Yeah.
How many of you use Google or an equivalent?
Google, yeah.
Right? How many of you are on Facebook?
Yeah.
How many of you use Twitter?
The
How
majority,
many of you are LinkedIn?
what was the last one?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Just about everybody.
Right. So now, has that made a difference to what you do? You're shaking your head.
Yes.
You can hear better than see.
Yeah. It's certainly changed. It's changed a lot the business of resumes.
How has it changed your learning?
Go ahead.
I feel like when it comes to learning, you have to do a lot less like memorization and a lot more like application. So rather than focusing on like stuffing as many facts into your head as you can, the emphasis has been on
So it was, I don't know, did you hear most of that, Akhtar? Or if not, I'll repeat.
Little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, the interesting point I think Bridget is making is that because facts are so readily available at your fingertips, learning is less about remembering all the facts than probably and you're freed up to do other things.
Right. Right. So you can actually do research and analysis much more quickly.
Yeah, I think people are agreeing with that. Yes.
Right? Now, if for online, and I see someone who have an Apple machine up, somebody has a Surface there, you can immediately research something right away. Correct?
Right.
If
So-
I ask a question, which is what I'm always astounded. When I ask a question, people don't answer. All you have to do is just type it into the computer
Right.
and see. So the thing is that we changed our learning, right? So let's see. From a crisis perspective, how do you get impacted? What happens when there's a flood or a storm or a warning, snowstorm?
So what happens when there's an outage?
Yeah.
How does that impact your work? It's a meltdown. Yeah.
It's a meltdown, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens is that you have no internet. You really don't care about the light. You can't charge your phone and you cannot have access to the internet. And so that changes how we actually think about what we are doing during a crisis. You guys are all in Ann Arbor, you're going to get lots of snow. And it's coming. Yeah, my son was, I spent 4 years at Ross. And how are you going to use technology when there is things that shut down?
Yeah, we've talked a bit about operating in offline mode.
But then the question becomes, what is that offline mode and what is the semi-connected mode? And then you start experiencing what people are going through in emerging markets and developing world.
Right.
Then you actually start thinking about why this is so important to you, and therefore why should it not be important to them? And so it then becomes a question of equity and access. And then what can we do as innovators, as educators, those of us that are going to go create things? What can you create in an effective way that can actually work across these spectrums?
That's a good challenge to end on.
Yeah.
I want to thank you very much, Akhtar. This has been a delight to have you with us. and a good example of how we make the B-Planet technology work. I joked at the beginning saying that the reason why Blue Jeans wasn't working is because it wasn't a Microsoft product, but I think it was probably something else. But anyway, I wish you well, and thank you again for spending time with us. I'll post your slides so that everybody can see them, and if there are any follow-up questions, I'll make sure I relay them to you.
Great, thank you very much. And guys, have fun. I now have to drive to go teach my class.
Okay. Thanks again, Akhtar.